this computer and I'll upload this right after. Okay, so let me just recap this. So just to recap what we just did, I went to create, I chose circle. With circle, I moved it, I go into edit mode. In edit mode, I want to make sure everything is selected. We went over select all, the toggle. Make sure all these vertices are selected. If you're missing some and you go to extrude, they'll be missing. Cool for making like a door or a hole, but if it's done by accident, it can be very frustrating. So there you go. Now I go to the side view where I can see the cone and I can see the circle, the flat circle. What I do next is I go to extrude this. There, I believe it might even be over here. Okay, so you can do extrude from two places. With everything selected, I can click on the mesh menu, which is down here. It will pop up with a menu, and I can select an option called extrude. It will be up here. Or there's also extrude over here, which extrude region, I believe, is the one you'd want to select. With the one from up here, you do edges. So I will show you that. I'm going to go to the mesh menu, extrude, edges. Now, if I move my mouse, you see it follows it, so it's really hard to get it perfect. But if you'd like, you can press in your mouse wheel. This tells Blender if you move it in a general direction and click that mouse button, it snaps to like the grid. It snaps to an axis, X, Y, or Z. If you go the wrong way by accident, that's okay. Just click the button again, the middle button, and it will make it free. And then you can select the right one. And when you're finished moving it, just left click. So that is extruding. And just to recap what the word meant, the exact definition was to force out, shape a material such as metal or plastic by forcing it through a die. A die basically mean it's like a mold of something. Think of it like that. So like in this case, it's the mold of a shape, like a square, a circle, a star, some sort of shape. And when you do that, it's much like Play-Doh when it pushes the material through a hole and the Play-Doh has that shape. So with 3D graphics, no matter what we add in, if it's a square, if it's a circle, if it's a triangle we make, and we click the extrude function, we stretch it out just like Play-Doh. And then all the other controls work like normal. So we can scale it like this. This isn't as good because it's not even, but if you're okay with that, that might be the easiest method to do it. And if you want it to be perfectly even on all sides, you can go to Tools, Scale. Scale is uniform. By that I mean it does it the same for every vertex. It's affected the same. It's not on one axis. It's on all the axes. It shrinks it. And then you get to this point. At this point, so remember, there's scale up here, there's mesh, transform, scale, and there's also, so mesh, there's transform, scale. There is this option, which gives you these little squares you can click and you can squish it on a specific axis and just kind of estimate to make sure it's perfect. Or under the tools option, there is scale, which is uniform. It moves it all at the same time. Now I want to make faces. I want them to be filled in. I don't want a hole like I have right now. So to do that, I can go to Mesh, Faces, and there's an option, Faces, let's see, should be Make Face. It's been a while. Here we go. Make Face or Edge. I just usually press the F key on my keyboard. I think it's easier because this menu is very lengthy. But if you forget it, you just go to Mesh, Faces, and then Face, or Fill I think technically works too. Either way. And then to select the bottom, Like we mentioned earlier, you can hold down the shift key and you can right click all the vertices. At this point, I think that might be the easiest method, and then select them all. A more advanced way is if you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard. This Alt key is usually next to the spacebar. I believe Macs also have it. And if you hold down the Alt key and you right click at the same time, this is also a little confusing, so I want to record this especially. And you select something in between 2 points, it automatically selects everything connected. It selects continuous vertices, ones that just would on the same path. If Blender can figure out a path to connect them, it will select it. So you can either select them one at a time, or you can hold down the Alt key and right click. Or as we talked about earlier, there's so many ways to do this. We can do select, border select, and select them all. Or we can do select, circle select, and then use it like a paintbrush and paint all the circles you want, all the vertices you want to select. Then I can go to mesh, faces, and I can select fill, the fill option, or I can do make face. Either one works. Or you can press the F key on your keyboard. That is a lot of information. I think we should all try to extrude something. And the cool thing about extruding something, let me give you an example. This is very specific, Miguel, to your question. Now, the rest of you might say, well, I don't need that right now. I don't need to do this to a cone. But now picture you have a cool spaceship. Let me put this in some context and show you something you can do to make your spaceship really cool. And also any questions on the concept of that, as I set this up, and then we can pass the ball around, make sure everyone can do that. I get scared if you don't have any questions on this one, to be honest. I'd have questions.
I might have only one part of the wall to move it down and stretch it. I don't know how.
So like when you go to pull it down, like make one part a little bit longer?
Yes.
Okay. If this doesn't answer you, let me know. Let's see. So many spheres. Okay, so I'm gonna add in the circle like you did. And if I want to extrude this down, no, it creates walls, but you're saying you only want to extrude a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, so the same function that we used to extrude the whole thing, it actually works perfect for small pieces too. So no matter what you do, like even if it's complicated, like the monkey head, if you select 3 vertices and only 3, and then I go to tools and extrude region or mesh extrude edges, I can literally pull out like the letter L out of the monkey's head. If I select 4 points, and I go to extrude it, oops, I forgot to deselect the L. But you can see why it's important to make sure you deselect, because that's a good mistake to see. So I can extrude specific parts. I can extrude them, and if you don't want something to come out and extrude it, just right click, and then you can even scale it down, and like this is cool for like a very cube-like effect. But you can extrude it however you would like. So with a circle, just select the vertices using the shift key and right clicking. And this is basically what you're looking for, right?
And yes.
Okay, excellent. And then also to add to that, if you had a sphere, or let's say you had a circle, right? And you extrude, say you want to make one part round, you can extrude it and then use the scale option to shrink it, extrude it, use the scale option to shrink it. So you can actually make one edge round, like a circle, like a sphere. Then use that, the F key or the mesh faces fill effect. And then I can select the bottom row, and then I can extrude this. And then if I want to select, every other set, I can do something like this, and I can extrude these separately. I can extrude specific faces by selecting 4 points or using, I don't know if you guys remember the other options of selection. But if we go down here, these ones, and I can extrude these. And you can get a lot of really cool shapes with just the extrude feature in Blender and scaling. And when you extrude, you can also rotate. So with this rocket ship, the last thing I'm going to show you, if anyone has questions, interrupt me. I can stay on maybe 10 minutes later too. Just I know this is a complicated subject, so we can all get a chance to try it. Unless, I'm not sure if you have to go. I know it's late. Let's see. So say I have this, and I think it's pretty cool, but I want to add more details to it. So I can take cylinders, let's say, and if I want to make it look like sci-fi-ish, more so than just a rocket ship, I can place a few cylinders on the ship in random places, angle them out so they're a little more natural looking. Let's say I put one there, and I want to put one over here. I can add a tube that connects almost like a hose. And I can do this with a circle. And if I put that circle over the cylinder, roughly, rotate it to look similar, I can put it inside where I can't see it. If I go into wireframe, I can. Edit mode, use the extrude function. Oops, not in edit mode. There we go. Use the extrude function. Then I can rotate it. Oops. Okay, now here's a good error. Not an error, but user error, me. If I go to rotate this, you see how it all moves together? It's weird. That's because I didn't shut off proportional editing. When you're extruding something, and then you go to move it, this is usually not useful, but it could be useful. But if the circle that you just extruded is really close to the other circle, it might mess you up. But now this works a little better, but I can kind of just, connect this. And remember, we're working in 3D, so it's really hard to get this to go exactly where I want it without moving my angle. And I'm just using the rotate feature, so I forget to not just use the shortcut sometimes, but rotate. So I'm using the R key, which is a shortcut, but the menu option is here under Tools. And this could be really cool looking if it's well thought out. So extruding, might help with making a cone, but it can be used for so many things. And then if I do the smooth shading on this, Tools. And I can scale down different sections of it to, if I need to, I can go in and edit, almost like when we make a vector graphic in PowerPoint and we want to move the points. And remember, the way I'm selecting a whole ring at once, I hold down the Alt key right next to the space key. Without letting go of the key, I right click. That was one of the methods for selection. Okay, so with this, I think this would conclude most of what we would need to do in edit mode. Extruding can do some pretty cool stuff if you want to make let's just brainstorm real quick together, and everyone should try this if you have the chance before you go, and I can stay on a little bit later. But say you want to make some sort of really cool spider, robot. How would you make the legs? Extruding would be extremely useful. Let's say you wanted to make a cool antenna on just a regular ship. You could extrude out a circle, and instead of using multiple objects, you could use one to make the nose. Let's say you wanted to have a ship, but you didn't want it to look smooth. You could use extruding to make panels that go out or in. And that's also really cool. So the extrude feature can be used quite a bit. So let me stop sharing my screen, and if anybody else wants to share their screen and try this, or has questions and have tried this, let's answer those. If you need to go, I understand, it's almost 8, but I can be on for a little bit.
John, I said Brent.
Yes.
I was using the what you was doing, but I forgot how to extrude.
No worries. Do you want to share your screen, or I can guide you?
Okay.
Okay. So if you have everything selected that you like, I'm gonna try and draw on top of your screen. Can you see this circle?
Yes.
Okay, so disable the editing, the proportional editing. When you go to extrude, sometimes that can cause issues. It doesn't affect when you do extrude it. You want to select the gray one at the bottom. So the gray one is disabled, which means it's off, and the blue ones mean it's on. And then to actually extrude it, go to the mesh menu. And it is right here, extrude. And then do edges only, the top one. And once you move it where you like it, you can left click and it will stay. And if you need to reposition it, just like you're doing, perfect. You can use those arrows just like normal and reposition it. Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? This is a little bit more complicated. This is the most complicated thing we're going to show you, to be honest. Everything else from here forwards will most likely be rendering this, setting up really cool materials, like when we showed you the modified Ares rocket in the beginning, and creating amazing pictures of like a rocket ship, maybe an alien or a planet. So, did you guys find the extrude feature useful? In the recap of edit mode useful? Was that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. Was everybody able to extrude something before we end the? Have you all seen John's rocket?
Yes, that's very cool.
Putting you on the spot, John. This is his other flying saucer. All right, so
Thanks, Brent.
you're welcome.
Okay. Well, guys, the best way to learn is to practice. So stick with it and make a list of questions. If you can't do something, don't worry. Just make a list of questions, and if anyone can answer them, Brent can. Okay.
Thanks,
Hey,
John.
Brent, thank you.
You're welcome. Next week, what we're gonna do, if no one has any questions about edit mode, I want to show you the settings to render really cool like colors, textures, lighting, so we can save our rocket ships. So if you have the chance during the week, it would be great if you could have a finished rocket ship. And when we come into the webcast room, what we'll focus on is the materials and saving the pictures.
Okay. Have a good week, guys.
Thank you.
See you
You're
next week.
welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brent.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.